Hey, y'all know what it is. Y'all know who it is. It's your boy Pharaoh the God. Always on the job. I got five. Let's talk. And as always, it's real talk, raw talk. And you know, it's that time again to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell another friend, to share, like, and subscribe. Don't hide. The buttons ain't got no teeth, so go ahead and reach. It don't cost you much to touch, so support the channel, support your boy, and above all, man, support the movement. Welcome to another episode of I Got Five Let's Talk, where we keep it fair like a California bear, and we ain't California raisins, so we ain't doing no hating. Again, welcome to another episode, man, of I Got Five Let's Talk, the platform podcast. And as you know, I'm your host, the man behind the voice. Tonight, we get into this hip hop report, the J Prince report. The big hip hop dummy and wannabe. And I asked the question, is his father the police? And today, I'm going to shed light on why I say that, or why I even ask that question. There has been a lot of speculation in hip hop for a long time about J Prince Sr. So in order to figure out why J Prince Jr. is able to act this way, get away with such things, be involved in such said behavior, and nothing ever happens to him. So today, we gonna break it down. And I know a lot of people might say it's hating, but not me. Because I feel how I feel for a real reason. So before we get into that, y'all go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend to tell a friend. This is where it's at. Give me a second. So what we gonna do, man, like I said, man, we gonna get into this content. But before we get into J Prince Jr., we have to figure out, to get a clear view of him, gotta see who his dad is. So let's run this content.
J Prince has been on the FBI's watch list for over 30 years, and just last September, federal agents raided his offices like they was hunting the most wanted man in America. No cap, this man has been allegedly extorting artists, running questionable business operations, and doing some real gangsta-type shit that got the feds building cases on him since the 80s. But here's the crazy part. Every time they think they got him, Shorty slips through their fingers like he's untouchable. We're talking about a dude who went from selling bucket cars in Houston's 5th Ward to becoming one of the most feared men in hip-hop, all while dodging federal investigations that have cost taxpayers millions of dollars. The September raid wasn't just some routine check. Sources say the feds seized computers, financial records, and communications that could finally give give them the evidence they've been hunting for decades. Today, we're going to dive deep into why the federal government still wants J. Prince locked up. And trust me, gang, this story got more twists than a Netflix series. From corrupt DEA agents to political cover-ups, from alleged mob-style extortion to multi-million-dollar money laundering schemes, this is the untold story of how one man built an empire while staying one step ahead of the law. J. Prince ain't just some regular music executive homie. This man built Rap-A-Lot Records from nothing and turned it into one of the most powerful labels in hip-hop history. He's the dude who put Houston on the map, discovered legends like Scarface and the Geto Boys, and became known as one of the most feared men in the entire music industry. But here's what really went down. While he was building his empire, the feds was watching every move, collecting evidence, and trying to connect dots that would put him away forever. The thing about J. Prince is that he operates in this gray area where legitimate business meets street politics. He's got connections that reach from the Houston streets all the way to Washington, D.C., and he's used those connections to stay protected for over
30 years. Now, if you've been watching this channel, and when we talk about drug lords, El Chapo, Big Meat, Southwest T, Freeway, Ricky Ross, you know one thing I always say: in order to be that big, you have to be working with them people. And I mean the police. You gotta be giving up information. This man was wanted by the federal government for over 30 years. And he always won. Or they didn't have enough to bring him down. Why him? And I know some people might say, man, P, that's kind of fucked up. You wishing bad, or no. But like I always say, I just see things a little bit different. And sometimes I like to share that difference of opinion. That's why, as I always say, let me reiterate, that's why it's called I Got Five, Let's Talk. Let's talk about it. Because these are some of the things that we need to talk about, because people look up to people like J. Prince Jr. and J. Prince Sr. And see, when you don't know, you don't ask the right questions. If he's connected in the streets, they could catch all type of other people, but they ain't got nothing on him. Or did they? See, you don't make it to that type of realm without being versed in working with the police. You just don't. J. Prince Sr. has been around some very interesting cases. And he seems to have always wiggled his way out of federal situations. Always. So let's continue this content and break this shit down.
3 decades. But the federal government don't forget, and they damn sure don't forgive. The September 2024 raid didn't just shake up his business, it sent shockwaves through the entire hip-hop community, because everyone knows when the feds come for J. Prince, they ain't playing games. Artists started making phone calls, lawyers started preparing defenses, and the whole Houston music scene went quiet because they know if J. Prince goes down, he might take half the industry with him. To understand how this whole situation really unfolded, we gotta go back to where it all started in the bloody streets of Houston's 5th Ward, where a young James Smith learned that survival meant you had to be smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than everyone around you. Let's rewind to 1965, gang. James Smith, that's J. Prince's real name.
They don't want you to know about it.
1965, gang. James Smith, that's J. Prince's real name, was born to a 16-year-old mother named Sharon Johnson in the infamous Coke Apartments in Houston's 5th Ward, known on the streets as the Bloody Nickel. This wasn't just any neighborhood, fam. This was one of the most dangerous and impoverished areas in all of Houston, where survival meant you had to be on that timing from day one. The 5th Ward in the 60s and 70s was like a war zone. We're talking about a place where the murder rate was through the roof, where kids grew up seeing more violence than soldiers in combat zones. The Coke Apartments was ground zero for all that chaos, a place where hope went to die and dreams got crushed before they could even form. Growing up, Prince watched his older sister get killed by a train walking home from school. That type of trauma changes a person, especially a young kid who's already struggling to survive in one of America's most dangerous neighborhoods. Friends and family was constantly getting locked up, and he bounced between homes and schools throughout his childhood like he was living in some type of urban nightmare. But here's where it gets interesting. Even as a kid, this dude was already thinking like a businessman. He was cutting grass for neighbors, working on welding trucks with older cats who taught him about hustle and respect. He was hunting in shady acres with his cousins, selling birds and rabbits for cash to anyone who would buy them. But that ain't all. Shorty was also learning to shoot dice in back alleys and allegedly selling stolen marijuana plants before he even hit puberty. Now let me paint you a picture of what Houston was like in the 70s and early 80s. The city was booming because of oil money, but that wealth wasn't reaching the 5th Ward. Instead, you had this crazy contrast where millionaires was living 20 minutes away from people who didn't have running water. That type of inequality breeds a certain type of hunger, and Jay Prince had that hunger from day one. In his own words, everything was about getting paid. That wasn't just teenage ambition talking, that was survival instinct. In the 5th Ward, you either found a way to make money or you became another statistic. Prince chose to make money, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. Jay Prince graduated from Kashmir High School, which was actually an achievement in itself considering the dropout rate in his neighborhood. He got what seemed like a legit job as a bank teller, and for a minute it looked like he might take the straight path. But at 20, he got laid off, and that's when he made a decision that would change everything. He started selling bucket cars and vowed to work only for himself. Friends were laughing at me, he said, but I learned the game. Here's where the story gets real fishy. No cap. Prince purchased an abandoned building and turned it into a used car dealership called Smith Auto Sales on the west side of Houston. Now, selling used cars is legal business, right? But the speed at which this man accumulated wealth was suspicious as hell, and it caught the attention of people who was watching money move in Houston.
Now, I'm going to stop right there. There's a story. It's not too well known. I tried to look it up before this. So this is folklore, conspiracy theory, and it's alleged. But this car lot, you see that they say that it was suspicious of how he was making his money. It is said that this car lot was raided. And this car lot was found to be in possession of a couple hundred bricks of cocaine, kilos, in the trunk of these cars. And it is further said and explained that the reason why he didn't go to jail is because he said that he used to leave the keys to the cars at the shop. So he didn't know what the workers were doing once he left. He wasn't there every day, which is a good excuse, no doubt. If it was his, that is a great excuse. But for the feds to find, allegedly, and for you to be obtaining wealth in that type of magnitude, is questionable. Very questionable. And the feds knew this. So I want you to keep in mind that since his beginning days, not the police, not the state troopers, the federal government was watching this dude since the 70s or 80s. Keep that in mind, that this dude has been being watched by the federal government since at least the 80s.
The used car business in Houston during the 80s was wild, fam. You had legitimate dealers, but you also had operations that was fronts for all types of illegal activity. Cars was being used to transport drugs, launder money, and move contraband across state lines. The fact that Jay Prince chose this particular business at this particular time wasn't no coincidence. By 21, he'd saved $100,000. That's some serious money for a young dude from the projects with no blueprint. By 23, he bought his mother a house and himself a 30-acre ranch. Let me put this in perspective for you. We're talking about a kid from one of Houston's most dangerous neighborhoods who went from cutting grass to owning property worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in just a few.
Let me show you. Install tester up. You earn money by completing tasks.
Just a few years. That type of come up don't happen from just selling bucket cars, if you know what I'm saying. The profit margins on used cars ain't that crazy, especially not enough to go from.
Now, I know some people are gonna say, "Oh man, you hating on the brother come up and this and that," right? We know how the feds play. They watch you, allow you to keep committing crimes. They know, but they gotta catch you. But once their eye is on you, they have this thing about continue to go after you until either you become an informant or they lock you up and you still become an informant. So once the feds is on you, they don't ever leave. So remember this, since the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, that's 40 years. This man, J. Prince Sr., has allegedly been on the run and not on the run, been evading the federal police. Now, keep in mind the alleged story about the drugs and the car lot. Keep in mind that the feds was on him about his unaccounted for wealth, but they couldn't prove it. Keep those two things in mind.
Broke to buying ranches in 2 years. The feds was definitely taking notes on how this money was moving so fast. And
look, he bought himself a 30-acre ranch in his mama's house at 23. And that nigga wasn't in no commercials. If he was doing that good and selling cars, why he ain't known for owning car lots in Houston? But I'm gonna just continue.
they started asking questions that J. Prince didn't want to answer. But here's where it gets crazy. And this is when J. Prince first caught the attention of federal law enforcement in a way that would haunt him for the next 3 decades. In 1988, a car with dealer license plates from his used car lot was stopped near El Paso by Border Patrol agents who was conducting routine inspections of vehicles crossing between Texas and New Mexico. When authorities searched that vehicle, they found 76 kilograms of cocaine hidden in a secret compartment that had been...
Oh, wait a minute. I was wrong about where it was at. I was wrong. And see, that's the thing about me. I will say what I remember, but I may be wrong about the story, but I'll be dead on about the facts. I don't just be jaw jacking and thigh slapping. Pause. 76 kilos. Now let's finish hearing the story.
Professionally installed. That's about 167 pounds of pure cocaine, gang. We're talking about millions of dollars worth of drugs directly connected to J. Prince's business. This wasn't some small-time operation. This was major league drug trafficking using his car lot as cover. One Houston man got convicted in that case and received a lengthy federal sentence, but his companion, who happened to be J. Prince's cousin, was later released under circumstances that raised even more questions. The fact that family members was involved made the feds think this wasn't just some random coincidence. This looked like organized criminal... was later released under circumstances that raised even more questions.
His cousin was released that raised even more questions. Like what? Could it be that he was working with the police? And after he told the police that, hold on, what up? On live. Text me. So, how did the police, I mean, shit, this your cousin, we already suspicious. Maybe he gave them clarification. I don't know. Let's finish watching.
The fact that family members was involved made the feds think this wasn't just some random coincidence. This looked like organized criminal activity. Now here's the part that really got the feds suspicious. Prince helped the jailed man's wife set up a bail bond company, and guess where they housed that business? Right inside Rap-A-Lot Records office building. That's some real organized crime type shit right there, using legitimate businesses to support the families of people who got caught up in illegal activities. According to federal investigators who worked the case, that drug seizure involving people directly connected to Jay Prince and his car lot opened the door to what would become one of the longest running investigations in hip-hop history. The DEA, FBI, and Houston Police Department started sharing information and building files on Jay Prince that would eventually fill multiple cabinets. For at least 8 years, these agencies worked aggressively to form an intelligence network with one goal: convict James Prince and shut down Rap-A-Lot Records under the RICO Act. They was using informants, wiretaps, surveillance, and financial investigations to try to prove that everything Jay Prince touched was connected to criminal activity. The RICO Act is serious business, fam. It allows the government to link entire organizations with the criminal activities of their members, which means they could have seized Rap-A-Lot Records, all of Jay Prince's properties, his cars, his bank accounts, everything. They was trying to prove that Rap-A-Lot Records wasn't just a music label. They believed it was a front for a criminal enterprise that was using hip-hop as cover for drug trafficking, money laundering, and extortion. Their own agents admitted in internal documents that the only way to get Jay Prince was through a conspiracy charge, because they couldn't directly connect him to any specific crimes. He was too smart, too careful, and too well protected to get caught with his hands dirty. But conspiracy charges don't require direct evidence. They just need to prove that you was part of an organization that committed crimes, even if you didn't personally pull the trigger or touch the drugs. Despite making 20 plus arrests connected to the investigation, they never charged Prince himself. But that don't mean they stopped watching. According to sources close to the investigation, federal agents was building files, recording conversations, following money trails, and mapping out Jay Prince's entire organization for years, trying to find that one piece of evidence that would stick. The investigation got so intense that agents was following Jay Prince's family members, monitoring his business associates, and even infiltrating his social circles with undercover operatives. They was treating him like a major organized crime figure, not just some music executive.
They infiltrated his circle with informants. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. This man has never been to jail, y'all. They infiltrated his circle with informants.
From Houston. Then things got political, and this is where the story gets wild as hell. A DEA agent named Jack Schumacher testified before Congress that the probe of Rap-A-Lot was canceled, and he was demoted after Jay Prince donated $200,000 to Al Gore's presidential campaign.
Can't win. Groceries are up. Gas is up. Tell him.
After Jay Prince donated $200,000.
Now remember, I said, when you get into that realm of drug dealing, it's unquestionable. It's a fact that you working with them people. You giving up that information. It's a fact. Ain't nothing, nigga, questionable about it. How do you get to stay up there? Because you helping get people locked up.
To Al Gore's presidential campaign. The same agent noted that Prince's church, to which he had donated over $1 million, was visited by Gore just 2 days before the investigation was shut down. Now, let me break down what this really means, gang. We're talking about a federal drug investigation that had been running for years, costing taxpayers millions of dollars, suddenly getting shut down right after a political donation. That's the type of corruption that makes people lose faith in the entire system. But wait, it gets even...
This man donates $1 million to a church, $200,000 to the man's presidential campaign. The presidential candidate is set to appear and all charges are dropped. Now, some may say, oh man, he donated to them people. You know what I'm saying? He played the game right. That's true too. But you gonna tell me that the people that he donated to didn't know what was going on, and he wasn't paying for that indictment to be dropped? I mean, we saw power. We know how motherfuckers react. We are now seeing the treachery and the abuse of power of political elite. We seeing that. But you gonna try to sit up here and tell me that these people didn't know J. Prince Sr. was under federal investigation for over 100 pounds of drugs, of cocaine? Let's be serious here. This man has been under federal investigation by the federal government, and he's donating $200,000 to Al Gore's presidential campaign, and they don't know nothing about it, but yet he has an open investigation, federal investigation. Come on now.
Crazier. California Democrat Henry Waxman stated there were no records of any contributions from Rap-A-Lot or Prince to the Gore campaign or the DNC. Prince's publicist called the charge absurd. So either somebody was lying or money was moving in ways that couldn't be traced through official channels. This is where J. Prince showed his political intelligence, fam. He wasn't just some street dude who got lucky. He understood that real power in America comes from political connections. He was making strategic donations, building relationships.
Political connections. That's a fancy word with fucking with the police. These the motherfuckers that run the police. You don't think that you gotta give up some information? You just gotta give up some money? We know when you go to jail, the police, the feds want your money and your freedom. So what do the feds want on the streets? They want your money and your information. Because when they done with you, they can expose you that you a rat, you was working with the police. Or if they don't want to go that route, they just throw you underneath the bus. They already know what you do. They know how you do it. Boom, get him. Ain't nobody got a rat on them. They working with them people, so them people already knowing what they doing. They allowed them people to be in this business because he thought he was being slick. What he should have did after, if he paid for that investigation to go away, he should have went underground. He should have went black, poof. But he didn't.
With politicians and creating a network of protection that went all the way to Washington, D.C. J. Prince wasn't just sitting back letting the feds build their case. This man was fighting back, and he had some powerful allies. He complained to Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who publicly campaigned against racism and racial profiling. Waters launched an internal probe into the conduct of the officers handling the case, specifically targeting DEA agent Jack Schumacher, who had been involved in 6 fatal shootings during his tenure. The fact that Maxine Waters got involved shows how J. Prince was able to frame this as a civil rights issue rather than just a criminal investigation. He was smart enough to understand that in America, everything is about race and politics, and he used both to his advantage. But the most gangsta move came from Scarface himself. On his album Last of a Dying Breed, Scarface named the 2 DEA agents who led the investigation and included lyrics threatening to ruin their careers. The Ghetto Boys' earlier video, Crooked Officer, was banned by MTV because it depicted the shooting of a police officer. In 1996, Republican presidential candidate Bob Dole cited the Ghetto Boys by name as an example of America's declining morals. This wasn't just music, gang. This was psychological warfare. J. Prince and his artists was sending a message to law enforcement that they wasn't scared, and they was willing to put names and faces out there for the world to see. They was basically
like the NWA of the South. NWA of the South.
saying, we know who you are, we know where you work, and we ain't backing down. The political pressure worked. The investigation got scaled back, agents got reassigned, and J. Prince continued building his empire while the feds watched from a distance. But they never stopped watching, and they never forgot. Now here's the most insane twist in this whole story, and this is some movie type shit for real. The same DEA agent who targeted Jay Prince for years and tried to frame him with drug conspiracy charges, Chad Scott, known as White Devil among drug traffickers, was later convicted and sentenced to 13 years in prison for stealing money from suspects, falsifying government records, and committing perjury. Government records and committing perjury.
Now remember, I said that on this level, you got to deal with the police. And what was they doing here? He was taking money from these dudes, getting information to these dudes, falsifying. They knew he was crooked. Why? Because they was working with him. They was working with him. And in order to cover up what he was doing with them, he had to get some drug busts. He had to. And then in order to protect him, what Jay Prince did was just pay to have him locked up. Jay Prince had more money, so Jay Prince made the call.
Let that sink in, fam. The agent who spent years trying to take Jay Prince down turned out to be a corrupt, evidence-planting drug dealer robbing Fed himself. This man was literally stealing from the same drug dealers he was supposed to be arresting, lying in court documents and committing perjury under oath while building cases against other people for the same type of criminal activity. Chad Scott's corruption went deep, gang. Internal investigations revealed that he had been stealing money from drug busts, planting evidence on suspects, and lying in federal court for years. He was running his own criminal enterprise from inside the DEA, using his badge and authority to commit crimes that was worse than anything Jay Prince was accused of. The revelation about Scott's corruption didn't just vindicate Jay Prince, it exposed the entire investigation as potentially corrupt from the beginning. How many of the arrests, the evidence, and the testimonies was legitimate if the lead agent was a criminal himself? How many innocent people got convicted based on planted evidence and false testimony? This is where Jay Prince's legal team went to work. They filed motions to have evidence thrown out, cases dismissed, and convictions overturned based on Scott's corruption. They argued that everything connected to Scott's investigation was tainted and couldn't be trusted in court. The federal government was embarrassed, fam. They had spent years and millions of dollars trying to build cases against Jay Prince and other Houston figures, only to find out that their lead agent was more corrupt than the people they was investigating. It was a black eye for the DEA, the FBI, and the entire federal law enforcement apparatus. But here's what's really wild. Even after Scott's conviction, the feds didn't give up on Jay Prince. They just changed tactics and brought in new agents who was determined to finish what Scott started, except this time they was gonna do it the right way. But the feds wasn't done with Jay Prince, not by a long shot. As the years went by, new allegations started surfacing that painted a picture of Jay Prince as more than just a music executive. They were saying he was running Houston's hip-hop scene like a mob boss, collecting tribute from anyone who wanted to do business in his territory. The allegation that really got the feds' attention was the check-in system. According to multiple sources in the music industry, when major artists come to perform or visit Houston, they are expected to check in with Jay Prince and pay him or his crew for protection. This is some old-school mob boss type shit where you can't do business in certain territories without paying tribute to the local power structure. Now let me explain how this allegedly works, because this is where Jay Prince's operation gets really sophisticated. When a major artist announces a Houston show, word gets back to Jay Prince's people. Someone from his organization reaches out to the artist's management and explains the rules for performing in Houston. The artist can either pay the fee and get protection, or they can risk having their show disrupted, their equipment damaged, or worse. The protection ain't just theoretical either. Houston is a dangerous city, and the hip-hop scene got connections to street gangs, drug dealers, and other criminal organizations. Jay Prince's reputation for violence and his connections to the streets mean that his protection is real, but so is the threat if you don't pay. Sources in the industry say the fees can range from $10,000 for smaller artists to $100,000 or more for major stars. That money gets split between Jay Prince's organization and local street crews who provide the actual security. It's a sophisticated operation that generates millions of dollars in revenue while staying just legal enough to avoid federal prosecution. The extortion allegations got more serious when Megan Thee Stallion's lawsuit against her label 1501 Certified Entertainment directly referenced Jay Prince. The lawsuit stated he is notorious in the music business for threats and intimidation towards artists and others, and has been referred to as one of the most feared men in hip-hop. The suit claimed that Jay Prince made specific threats related to Roc Nation's management of Megan. Now, Megan Thee Stallion is one of the biggest artists in the world right now, so when her legal team puts Jay Prince's name in federal court documents alleging threats and intimidation, that's the type of evidence the Fed's been waiting decades to get their hands on. This wasn't some street-level beef. This was a major artist with major legal representation making specific allegations in federal court. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Jay Prince admitted some of this shit himself on record. He revealed that a Rap-A-Lot connected artist was extorting DJ Screw monthly by using J. Prince's name, claiming to represent him without J. Prince's knowledge. DJ Screw was paying the artist regularly out of fear of J. Prince's reputation alone. When Prince found out and brought Screw to his office, Screw told him, "Man, you ain't nothing like they say you are." That admission right there shows the power of J. Prince's reputation on the streets. People was paying money just because someone claimed to represent him, even when he didn't know about it. That's the type of fear and respect that comes with being seen as untouchable for so many years. The DJ Screw situation also shows how J. Prince's reputation was being used by other people to commit crimes. His name had become so powerful in Houston that just claiming to represent him was enough to extort money from people. That's both a testament to his power and a liability that could be used against him in court. The allegations against J. Prince go way beyond just collecting fees from visiting artists. Multiple lawsuits and police reports paint a picture of a man who was willing to use violence and intimidation to get what he wanted, whether that was business deals, respect, or revenge. A Houston studio owner named Ronald Bookman filed a lawsuit accusing J. Prince of a 2007 assault and extortion plot that reads like something out of a gangster movie. Bookman claimed J. Prince sought to coerce majority ownership of his recording studio, Studio 7303, through a combination of business pressure and physical violence. According to the lawsuit, the situation started when Bookman was working on a deal involving Bun B, one of Houston's most respected rappers. J. Prince allegedly reneged on the deal, then blocked Bookman from securing a Warner Brothers distribution deal by refusing to clear the Bun B guest spot. When Bookman tried to fight back through legal channels, that's when things got physical. Bookman claimed he suffered head trauma, a broken nose, and a damaged eye from a meeting that was supposedly arranged to settle their business dispute. According to his account, what started as a business negotiation turned into a brutal assault that left him hospitalized and afraid for his life. The details of the alleged assault are disturbing.
Is she texting someone behind your back?
Afraid for his life. The details of the alleged assault are disturbing, fam. Bookman claimed that J. Prince and his associates cornered him in a private location and beat him unconscious while threatening to kill him if he didn't sign over his studio. This wasn't just business intimidation. This was alleged torture designed to force a specific outcome. The criminal charges were eventually dropped after prosecutors said Bookman's credibility was damaged, but the civil lawsuit continued for years. This pattern keeps repeating with J. Prince. Allegations get made, cases get built, but somehow the charges don't stick or witnesses become unreliable. But here's what's really interesting about the Bookman case. It shows how J. Prince allegedly used his power in the music industry to destroy people who crossed him. By blocking the Warner Brothers deal, he wasn't just hurting Bookman financially. He was sending a message to the entire Houston music scene that crossing J. Prince had consequences that went beyond just losing money. Another case that got the feds' attention involved allegations that J. Prince's organization was involved in witness intimidation during federal trials. Multiple sources claimed that people who were supposed to testify against J. Prince or his associates received threats, had their families harassed, or suddenly changed their testimony at the last minute. Witness intimidation is a federal crime that carries serious penalties.
All allegations. All allegations. Until you come up with the publishing idea of Suge Knight, J. Prince, and Irv Gotti. They were going to start their own publishing company. Distribution company. All black owned, and they were going to run it. Now, you might say, well, what happened? Suge Knight ended up going to prison, getting sued. Irv Gotti ended up going to prison, getting sued. Well, what happened to J. Prince? Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
And it's one of the charges that the feds use to bring down organized crime figures. If they could prove that J. Prince was systematically intimidating witnesses, they could use that as the foundation for a RICO case that would bring down his entire organization. The intimidation allegedly took many forms. Anonymous phone calls threatening family members, cars getting vandalized, people losing their jobs, or even more direct threats of violence. The message was always the same: keep your mouth shut or face the consequences. While the feds was investigating the violence and intimidation, they was also following the money, because that's usually where organized crime figures make their biggest mistakes. J. Prince's financial empire is complex, with multiple businesses, properties, and investments that generate millions of dollars in revenue every year. Rap-A-Lot Records is just the tip of the iceberg, gang. Jay Prince also owns real estate, car dealerships, restaurants, and other businesses throughout Houston and beyond. The question the Fed's been asking for decades is, where did all this money really come from, and is it being used to launder proceeds from illegal activities? Financial investigators have been tracking money flows through Jay Prince's various businesses for years, looking for patterns that might indicate money laundering, tax evasion, or other financial crimes. They've subpoenaed bank records, analyzed cash transactions, and followed money trails that lead from Houston to offshore accounts in countries with strict banking secrecy laws. One area that's gotten particular attention is Jay Prince's real estate investments. He owns multiple properties worth millions of dollars, including his famous ranch and various commercial buildings. The feds want to know if these properties was purchased with legitimate business income or if they represent investments of illegal drug money. The car dealership business is another area of focus. Used car lots are notorious for being used to launder money because they deal in high-value items that can be bought and sold with cash. The fact that Jay Prince's original wealth came from car sales and that his car lot was connected to the 1988 cocaine seizure makes this a natural area for investigation. But Jay Prince's financial operations are sophisticated, fam. He's got accountants, lawyers, and financial advisors who know how to structure transactions to avoid triggering federal reporting requirements. Money gets moved through multiple accounts, businesses get bought and sold, and profits get reinvested in ways that make it difficult to trace the original source. The feds have also been looking at Jay Prince's charitable donations because criminals often use charity as a way to launder money and gain social respectability. Jay Prince has donated millions of dollars to churches, schools, and community organizations over the years. While these donations might be legitimate, they also provide a way to move large amounts of money while creating positive publicity. As recently as September 2024, federal authorities raided Rap-A-Lot Records and Jay Prince's personal offices in what sources describe as the most comprehensive search in the decades-long investigation. The reasons for the raid remain officially unclear, but it sent shockwaves through the hip-hop community because everyone knows when the feds come for Jay Prince after all these years, they must have something serious. The raid wasn't just a fishing expedition, gang. Sources close to the investigation say the feds had specific information about ongoing criminal activity, possibly including new evidence of extortion, money laundering, or witness intimidation. They seized computers, financial records, communications, and other evidence that could finally give them the smoking gun they've been looking for. What makes this raid different from previous investigations is the scope and coordination. Multiple federal agencies was involved, including the FBI, DEA, IRS, and U.S. Attorney's Office. They executed search warrants simultaneously at multiple locations, suggesting they was trying to prevent evidence from being destroyed or moved. The timing of the raid is also significant. It came just months after several high-profile artists made public statements about Jay Prince's alleged intimidation tactics, and during a period when the federal government has been cracking down on organized crime in the music industry. Sources say the current investigation is focused on several key areas: ongoing extortion of artists and music industry figures, money laundering through Jay Prince's various businesses, tax evasion related to unreported income, and possible connections to drug trafficking operations that continue to this day. The feds are also looking at Jay Prince's relationships with other figures in the hip-hop industry who have been accused of similar crimes. They're trying to build a case that shows a pattern of organized criminal activity that goes beyond just one person or one organization. One thing that's different about this investigation is the cooperation they're getting from victims and witnesses. In the past, people was too scared to talk to the feds about Jay Prince. People was too scared to talk to the feds about Jay Prince. But as his power has been challenged by younger figures in the industry, and as the federal government has gotten better at protecting witnesses, more people are willing to come forward with information. The September raid also suggests that the feds might have inside information, possibly from someone close to Jay Prince's organization who's been cooperating with the investigation. That type of inside information is usually what breaks these types of cases because it provides the detailed knowledge of how the organization operates that's needed to build a successful prosecution. The ongoing federal investigation of Jay Prince represents more than just one man's legal troubles. It's part of a broader effort by law enforcement to address what they see as the intersection of organized crime and the hip-hop industry. The feds believe that figures like Jay Prince have used the music business as cover for criminal enterprises that generate hundreds of millions of dollars in illegal revenue. This investigation has implications for the entire hip-hop community. Fam, if the feds can successfully prosecute Jay Prince under RICO statutes, it sets a precedent for going after other industry figures who operate in similar ways. Record labels, management companies, and entertainment businesses throughout the country are watching this case because it could change how the industry operates. The fear in the hip-hop community is that the federal government is using Jay Prince as a test case for a broader crackdown on black-owned businesses in the music industry. There's a long history of law enforcement targeting successful black entrepreneurs, and many people see the Jay Prince investigation as part of that pattern. But there's also recognition that if the allegations against Jay Prince are true, his actions have hurt the hip-hop community by perpetuating stereotypes about the connection between rap music and criminal activity. Artists, executives, and fans are divided about whether Jay Prince is a victim of racist prosecution or a criminal who's finally being held accountable. The investigation investigation has also exposed the complex relationships between street culture, legitimate business, and political power that define much of the hip-hop industry. Jay Prince's ability to operate for decades while avoiding prosecution shows how these relationships can provide protection, but also how they can eventually become liabilities. Young artists coming up in the industry are watching this case closely because it's teaching them about the risks of getting too close to figures who operate in the gray areas between legal and illegal activity. The message is clear. Success in hip-hop doesn't have to come with criminal baggage, and the federal government is willing to spend decades building cases against people who think they're untouchable. So where does this leave Jay Prince and the federal investigation today? Based on the September 2024 raid and ongoing legal developments, it appears that the feds are closer than ever to bringing charges that could finally stick. The evidence they seized during the raid is still being analyzed, but sources suggest it includes communications that could prove conspiracy charges and financial records that might support money laundering allegations. Jay Prince's legal team is preparing for what could be the fight of his life. After decades of successfully avoiding federal prosecution, he's facing investigators who have learned from past mistakes and are determined not to let him slip away again. The stakes couldn't be higher. A successful RICO prosecution could result in decades in federal prison and the seizure of his entire business empire. The hip-hop community is watching nervously because a Jay Prince conviction would send shockwaves throughout the industry. It would prove that no one is untouchable, no matter how much money they have or how many political connections they've built over the years. But Jay Prince ain't going down without a fight, gang. He's got some of the best lawyers money can buy, and he's spent decades building relationships that could help him weather this storm. He's also got a loyal organization that's been tested by previous investigations and knows how to protect their leader. The federal government, on the other hand, has invested too much time, money, and reputation in this case to walk away empty-handed. They've been building this case for over 30 years, and they believe they finally have the evidence needed to bring down one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop history. So why do the feds still want Jay Prince locked up after all these years? Because in their minds, he represents everything they hate about the intersection of street culture and legitimate business. They see a man who allegedly used intimidation, extortion, and violence to build an empire, then used that empire's success to gain political protection and social respectability. Whether Jay Prince is guilty of the crimes he's been accused of for decades, or whether he's a successful black businessman who's been targeted by a racist system, depends on who you ask. But one thing is for sure, the federal government ain't giving up on this case. They've invested too much time, too many resources, and too much reputation to walk away now. The 2024 raid shows they still believe they can find evidence that will finally bring down one of hip-hop's most powerful and controversial figures. The next few months could determine whether Jay Prince continues his decades-long winning streak against federal prosecutors, or whether his luck finally runs out. This case is about more than just one man's legal troubles. It's about power, respect, and the thin line between legitimate business and organized crime in the world of hip-hop. It's about whether the federal government can successfully prosecute someone who's been smart enough to stay one step ahead of the law for over 30 years. No cap, this story is far from over, and when the next chapter gets written, it's going to be just as wild as everything that came before it. The feds still want Jay Prince locked up because they believe he's gotten away with crimes for too long, and they're determined to prove that no one, no matter how powerful or well-connected, is above the law. What y'all think about this whole situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you want me to break.
Now, is Jay Prince a rat? Is yet to be proven. Is his come up questionable? It could be suspect. Not as in a snitch, but suspect as in illegitimate gains. But this is the life of Jay Prince Sr. Now, if we throw the conspiracy theories and certain analyzations out the window, because none of them are concrete. When you look at what's actually on paper, and for the feds to be openly saying that they're going after this man, he must have either some real good connections, some real good ones, or this man isn't involved no longer or never been involved in what they're attributing to him. That's just the truth. Do I believe it? It doesn't really matter what I believe. I do know, though, that J. Prince Sr. was the only one that didn't go to jail or get sued. Nothing happened to him behind that distribution deal they was trying to create. I do know that. But also I do know that the feds have still been on him since then, and they haven't been able to apprehend him. That's keeping it fair like a California bear. That is the untouchable life of J. Prince Sr. Not no rat. Now his cousin, maybe his cousin gave up a whole lot of information to where the police knew, but he switched it up so good, allegedly, that now they back at ground zero. This is the untouchable life of J. Prince Sr. Now, when we look at his son, J. Prince Jr., we see all his erratic behavior, delinquent behavior, sassy behavior, arrogant behavior. Nothing like his dad. Why? Because he has grown up in this world, allegedly probably hearing the stories on TV, seeing the police trying to attribute certain things to his father, attach certain things to his father. And he thought he could be that same person. But this is what's gonna fuck it up. And this is why the feds have more of a chance of bringing down the J. Prince family more now than ever, because of the reckless behavior of his son. If you gonna be in that life and allow your children to be in that life and indulge in that life, when he fucking up like that, he gotta get tuned up. Hey, yo, James, Sam, tune this nigga up. Give a fuck he my son. He out of line. Whoop his ass. He gonna understand. And if he don't, he better just stay the fuck out my way. And yes, some children do develop hatred and want to go to war and try to kill their parents. But hey, we living in that lifestyle. And making exception to the rules, we always see this is what brings the head person down. El Mencho, the cartel dude, one of the, not El Chapo, El Mencho, the one that just recently was killed at the airport. Wanted to be around the brawl. Got killed. El Chapo wanted to be around a brawl. Got killed. Got caught. This nigga wants to be around his son, have his son around. That is gonna destroy the organization. And some of you say, well, Pharaoh, how do you nigga, you know what I'm saying? You can't kill your son. Nah, but you could whoop his ass. You could have the homies put some knuckles on him. Like, real talk, we in this life, right, Junior? All right, nigga, you fucked up. Get this ass whooping. Real shit. Nigga, you got that ass whooping because you fucking up the organization. You already know I got him on me. But you giving it to him a little more easier. And now this, the All-Star J situation. The sad thing about this is, let's go to fairy tale hypothetics real quick. Be theatrical. If Jay Prince Sr. was and is who the federal police are saying he is, the only reason why they're around now and will be able to get somebody to snitch is because what his son doing. Somebody could possibly be within that organization. You already seen, they said they infested his circle with informants. Maybe they there just waiting for the confirmation and linkage of the orders being given from Jay Prince Sr. to Jay Prince Jr. But whatever it is, Jay Prince Jr. got the whole spot out. So, do I believe he's a rat? I don't know. I know it's possible. But I do know for a fact the feds still want him. So that's some type of credibility. His son, on the other hand, hip-hop's biggest dummy. He gets disrespected, disrespects his father, disrespects the legacy, goes back and forth with hip-hop artists, does sloppy business, puts the family business at risk. And now lately orchestrated a situation behind his personal dealings and got somebody shot up in the chest and paralyzed for life. Hip-hop's biggest dummy, y'all. Hey, y'all know what it is. Y'all know who it is, man. Y'all know the motto. Take care of each other. And if you can't do that, take care.